So give it up for Jen. Come on.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Jen Burke Anderson. I'm going to read from a short story in progress called The Constantly Unfolding Horrors of Vasily Nikolaevich. There lived in San Francisco a certain Vasily Nikolaevich Rostov, whose horror regarding the current state of the world was well known and much discussed in the bars, music halls, and cafes of the Mission Prospect. Vasily Nikolaevich was a slight youth of pale complexion and bird-like demeanor. Thin, wiry black hair sprung from the vast plane of his forehead, making his entire head into a sort of exclamation point. His sunken eyes fiended upon whatever they happened to alight, at once desperately attracted to and repulsed by their subject. The financial district news kiosk at which he had worked shut down, as did so many other concerns, shortly after Wall Street's nosedive of September 2008. Since then, he had subsisted on minor pot sales, the odd bicycle repair gig, and his dwindling government dole. He had taken cellar rooms in a large Victorian on Shotwell Street, where he kept watch over a pile of brakeless bicycles belonging to the 7 other inhabitants of the house. If his fever of recoil from the world and its decline was the subject of much fascination in the Prospect social scene, in his household it was the central fact of existence. From his subterranean rooms, Vasily Nikolaievitch's explosive fear reverberated upwards and throughout the walls like the churnings of a runaway engine. Approximately twice a week, the door in the kitchen connecting to his underground dwelling would fling open, and towards the recycling bin a volley of shredded paper would fly. The Economist, The Week, The New York Times, with articles scissored out of every other page. Then the door would shut, and the footsteps of Vasily Nikolaevich would thunk back down the hollow wooden staircase. Any number of housemates who had heretofore been standing around mumbling and brushing fruit flies off last week's spill of espresso grounds would bare their clenching teeth to each other. There was print media, and of course the internet. Vasily Nikolaevich's fingertips could not touch a laptop, but slammed down violently on each key with the full force of his body and youth. At 2 a.m., the neighbors across the street, staring at their ceilings, could make out individual keystrokes. The roommates felt subjected to a deafening ticker tape of hysteria. Of the journalistic arsenal that the young man stockpiled in his quarters, his favorites by far were the color cover photos of the New York Times. Always some faraway child awaiting treatment in a field hospital. Always some sensuously glowing car bomb or petrol explosion. Some tangle of corpses miraculously lit from behind by a gorgeous sepulchral light. Tragic, biblical, a view through some lens of compassion, inseparable from the theater of catastrophe. These photos seemed to him the last thing remaining in the world, resembling purity. He taped them one by one over his sunken window, which looked out onto a small air shaft, blessed with a plastic pot of dead geraniums. The midday winter light shone through. The New York Times cover photos seemed to warm the backs of his eye sockets. He dreamt of a sort of person he knew he needed to meet, the sort of person he must one day meet, if, of course, it were not all too late. Thank you.